and welcome to another webinar at the National Library of Scotland. My name is Kenny Redpath and I'm the Events Officer at the Library. I'm delighted that we can welcome not just people from the UK this evening, but also viewers from all over the world. We're joined tonight by people from Romania, the United States, Poland, Russia, and Saudi Arabia, to name but a few. It's just so great to have all of you tuning in to basically our sitting rooms. I have to say, after 6 months, it is getting a little more relaxing and cozy and strangely enjoyable in such strange times. And I hope that you are enjoying our programme of events. So with that in mind, it's my pleasure this evening to introduce Todd Westbrook, who's here to talk about his new book, Revolution, A Short, Sharp History of Scottish Wind Power. Todd is a career journalist, writer, and editor who has worked for newspapers, magazines, agencies, and online outlets in a variety of countries across a wide range of subject areas. More than 1 million words have been published under his byline across news, features, analysis, and long-form pieces. Jealously, I found out this morning that his home is now in the Scottish Highlands, which I'm sure are beautiful this evening. So hopefully now over to you, Todd.
Hello all. Thank you very much, Kenny. I really appreciate that, and welcome everybody to this webinar. I'm just going to get my screen up here so we can share the presentation. There we go. Welcome. We have entitled this webinar with a little bit of hyperbole and a hint of clickbait as How Scottish Wind Can Save the World. My name is Todd Westbrook. I am a writer, a journalist, and the author of Revolution, A Short, Sharp History of Scottish Wind Power and Where It Goes in the Future, which is published by Lewith Press and which comes out in a couple of weeks. So order yours now to avoid disappointment. I had intended to start the presentation with a bit of Beatles singing Revolution, or perhaps Bob Marley doing his version of Revolution, but unfortunately I could not secure permission for either. So if you could just sort of hum that as we go along here, that would probably work just as well. I want to thank the National Library of Scotland for the invitation to do the webinar, for doing the hosting, and for also tackling the technological elements involved. I'll point out that they are not responsible for the slides or the words. That is all on me, good, bad, and ugly. And please remember, there is a reason I write instead of speak for a living, so I apologize in advance for if anything is unclear, or if anything is mumbled, or if anything is confusing. Please do call me up on it afterwards, and be kind. Thank you very much. So what we're going to do over the next 45 minutes, here we are. First off, we're going to set the scene. Today's presentation is about nothing less than saving the world. And the role that Scottish renewable energy, specifically wind power, has played and can continue to play in that endeavor. We're going to get 5 facts about wind. These are not assertions. These are not assumptions. These are not spin. These are facts established over the 25-year history of Scottish wind and my time covering it as a journalist. We're going to get 5 lessons to be learned based on those facts. These are more subjective, they're more debatable, they are open to discussion, and I would encourage everyone to use that as the basis for ongoing debate. And to finish, we're going to get a big opportunity and a big ask. And then hopefully we'll have time for some questions and answers. A bit about me, just to reiterate. I am 25 years as a working journalist. More than a decade spent on covering renewable energy, but also time spent on daily papers, national papers, wire agencies, niche publishers. I've done just about everything a journalist could do, happily with a big smile on my face. I do have more than 1 million words published under my byline across news, features, analysis, and long-form works. Some of those 1 million words even spelled correctly first time out. I'm a well-traveled American, as you can tell from my accent, and I am based in the Scottish Highlands since 2003. and very comfortable here. Thank you very much. You can find me online. tswestbrook.com is my website. And I also do the Twitter thing, TS Westbrook without the vowels in it, if you want to check that out. We're going to start with an extract. Now, there's some abstruse technology words there, but I don't want you to be scared. They're there intentionally. We get beyond that quite quickly, but it's worth saying that it's okay. It is okay to sometimes feel a bit lost in the subject matter of wind and renewables. Don't let that put you off. We're going to try and avoid that completely this evening. So here comes the extract from Revolution, which, as I think I mentioned, you can order now. Megawatts, kilowatt hours, asynchronous generators, and carbon paybacks sometimes take center stage in the short, sharp history of Scottish wind power. But have no fear. The journey you are about to take is not predominantly scientific, industrial, or mechanical. It is human. It is about saving the planet and living in the kind of world we always imagined. It is about a country moving away from smog, from nuclear waste, from leaky pipelines, and from slag heaps. Bings, if you are local. It is about endlessly drawing power from the air around us and addressing global warming and being green, whatever that actually ends up meaning. Which is why what happened over the 25-year history of the commercial wind sector in a small, storm-lashed country on the northwest fringe of Europe deserves telling. The successes and mistakes must be heeded, the pitfalls avoided, the lessons and learnings applied. The first generation of what amounts to a large-scale research and development program needs to go to work for the people who helped to fund that valuable experience through their energy bills. It needs to be reinvested in solutions that will, in the longer term, be of benefit to everyone in Scotland and beyond, whatever their views on wind power. And if speeding up decarbonization simultaneously makes the energy system more democratic and decentralized, more likely to benefit all comers rather than those just wearing business attire, better tailored to the needs of communities as well as landowners, then so much the better. Be under no illusion, though. The history of wind power will not by itself solve the wider problems of a planet facing meltdown and should not be used as an excuse for inaction on other fronts. At best, in fact, it will only help to define the tabs and blanks on a single piece of the 1,000 strong jigsaw that is the climate emergency. But perhaps what follows can help to kickstart discussions about part of the answer and, at least, means there are just 999 pieces to go. Why did I call the book Revolution? Quite simple. 1995. 0 commercial wind farms in Scotland. 0. No meaningful contribution to non-hydro renewables, from non-hydro renewables to energy supply. 0. 2020, 25 years later, a blink of an eye. Boop. Wind farms are the largest generating asset class in Scotland, and renewables are capable of meeting all the country's energy needs and beyond. 5 facts about Scottish wind to draw from that revolutionary experience. And these are, as I mentioned before, these are facts. This is not hyperbole. I'm not extrapolating. These are facts. Scotland, by which I mean Scotland, is one of the most successful wind countries in the world. On a per capita basis, if you count every man, woman, and child, and you count the amount of installed wind in the country, Scotland has more installed wind power per person than the rest of the UK, than all the member states of the EU, including Denmark and Germany, more than the US, more than China. In fact, I haven't checked all 200 odd countries on the planet, but it is possible that Scotland is the most successful wind energy country on earth on a per capita basis. When I get that research done, I will let you know. Fact 2. And there's 2 facts here that I probably shouldn't have to talk about because they should be givens, but I'm going to because they are matters of debate. Wind produces electricity. If you put up a wind turbine and the wind blows across it, it will create electricity. And the more turbines there are, the more electricity they produce. And the higher the wind resource, the higher the opportunity to create that electricity. In the most recent full year period, for which figures are available, in Scotland, renewable energy provided 50, and of which the vast majority is wind power, provided 55% of all generation and 75% of power consumed in Scotland. That's not potential, that's not theoretical, that is based on actual usage over a 12-month period. Right, next, another one that I shouldn't have to point out, but I will. Wind cuts carbon emissions. A system rich in wind power can cut carbon. In general, and specifically in the Scottish context, a country that expands its wind sector will achieve a reduction in the carbon intensity of electricity production. Carbon intensity of generation is the amount of carbon burned when you use electricity. So every time you hit your kettle, it burns a certain amount of carbon to heat up that water through the electricity. That level of carbon intensity just 15 years ago used to be around 300 grams per kilowatt hour of carbon that was burned. Now it's down to 50. That is a remarkable transformation in a very short period of time. The main change over that period in the energy mix is the introduction of wind and the decline of traditional generation. So wind cuts emissions. Next, Scotland, again, by which I mean Scotland, not the rest of the UK, gets more out of wind in an economic sense than it pays out. By my own reckoning, so including some ifs and some buts, and probably erring on the side of conservative estimates, for every pound spent by Scotland to support wind power, subsidies, system charges, those kind of things, the country gets £3.50 in return as a boost to the economy. And as I said, I suspect that's conservative, but better to be erring on the side of conservative than the other way around. So there you go. Scotland gets more out of wind in an economic sense than it pays out. And that's without the manufacturing jobs that are often the headlines that you see about wind power and jobs. So there we go, an economic benefit. And then demand for low carbon electricity, such as wind, continues to expand and will continue to expand dramatically as we gather speed and the push for net zero. Three reasons for that increasing demand. One, electrification of the economy. Electric cars, electric trains, the production of hydrogen, which is linked to electricity. All these things mean the need for electricity continues. Smartphones, incredibly hungry things. Right. Number two, nuclear stations are being retired in Scotland. Coal's already gone, and there's very little gas being built. Most new build electricity is coming from wind. And finally, other options for electricity, marine energy, carbon capture and storage, increased efficiencies, etc., are not currently mature or widespread enough to make significant contributions in the medium term. So, to recap our 5 facts. Scotland, world leader in wind. Wind, not a fraud, produces electricity. 3, wind cuts carbon. Fantastic. 4, wind is a net economic gain, and demand for low carbon electricity is increasing dramatically. And it goes without saying, I should say, that a lot more detail in the book. So why is this important? 2 words: climate emergency. And then we get some melting ice, because what's climate emergency without a bit of melting ice? And then we also get a little quote. The low carbon imperative has never been so acute. It is time to put the history of Scottish wind to work. So 5 lessons to be learned from Scottish wind, i.e. how to capitalize on 25 years of history. We all paid, as I mentioned in the extract there, we all paid to get where we are through our energy bills. We funded an R&D program that was required to make wind a commercial, widespread technology in Scotland and to pave the way for the continued expansion of renewables. We should not waste the chance to learn from that 25 years. Everyone will draw different lessons. I completely accept that. And I would encourage that. But to get the ball rolling, here are 5 that I come away with, having observed the sector for more than a decade. Number 1, keep the fleet. Scotland has a huge number of wind farms already installed, and about 1/3 of those that have been built over the last 25 years are nearing the point at which their end of life is approaching. There's no point taking that low carbon generation, which we work so hard to get, out of the system when we need it most. There's no point taking that backward step. So we can either extend the life of the wind farms, some of the wind farms we already have, or we can repower them with bigger, more modern machines. There are a few exceptions, of course, of wind farms that are in the wrong place and should just go. But I can only think of a couple, and I know where most of them are. So it shouldn't be that much of a debate here. Keep the fleet. Number 2, maximize, maximize, maximize. Replacements and new build projects, whether onshore wind or offshore wind, must be allowed to take advantage of the latest technologies. Wind power has advanced hugely over the 25 years that it's been in Scotland, and there's no point underutilizing the resource that's out there. Efficiency and economy are paramount, and of course that generally means fewer but larger wind turbines. And that makes some people uncomfortable. But I think what we'll find is, if you look at this, Germany and Denmark, other slightly more mature wind markets, have found that using bigger and fewer turbines is a lot better than using lots of small ones. And size is a relative thing. The TV is a good analogy. It used to be that a 32-inch TV was a really big TV. Now you can't even buy a 32-inch TV. A 36-inch TV is pretty much the smallest TV you can buy. And you have this giant thing on your wall and no one thinks it's all that big. So there you are. Think of TV. Number 3, make a roadmap. This is not just about saying which wind farm should go where. This is about an entire electricity and power system approach to the transformation to low carbon, because markets need direction, particularly when this sort of transformational change is required. Otherwise, what you find is that money takes the easiest route, and that tends to mean the most profitable segment, and outcomes are distorted. That is what happened with wind and with solar in the 2010s, which eventually led to a bit of a backlash and what ended up being a de facto moratorium after 2015 in terms of land-based projects. And that is still being felt today. So we want to avoid that stop and start. So a roadmap is necessary. We need to integrate the supply chain, the transmission networks, the infrastructure, including storage, into that whole system approach. Otherwise, we're only addressing one of those 1,000 elements that we talked about at the beginning of the broadcast here. That's essential, whole system. Right, here we go. Number 4, be honest. Governments, industry, campaign groups, people like myself need to play this straight. We need to be straight about the size of the challenge, the extent of the challenge, the complexity of the challenge, and the potential costs of the challenge in front of us with the climate emergency and the need for net zero. We need to acknowledge the wind doesn't blow all the time, and not every job will be created in Scotland. Just building lots and lots of low carbon generation isn't the whole answer. You have to take care of networks, you have to take care of heating, you have to take care of transport. And also, you need to accept that not everybody likes wind, which I appreciate can be something of a understatement. But the necessity of wind as a low carbon technology, the importance of its place in the wider system, needs to be better explained by both government and industry when they're being honest. Further, you have to acknowledge that there will be losers as well as winners from the low carbon revolution. That needs to be better communicated and contingencies put in place to account for the negatives. There are difficult choices ahead, and not everybody is going to be happy, but that is inevitable. And so there is really no point sugarcoating anything. Whatever opposition there is needs to be met head on with respect and a bit of real backbone. Right, number 5. Time is flying here. Share the wealth. Yes, there is community benefit from wind power. Yes, there is wider economic gain from renewables in inward investment and jobs. But even with the wealth that's already been created, the rewards from renewables must be better distributed across the country. Look to Norway's oil fund for a model of how to turn a natural resource into a national resource. Find more innovative ways to share immediate profits with communities and with regions. Because without long-lasting, significant public support, renewables will not achieve the far-reaching changes necessary to meet net zero. It's that simple. So to recap, and again, please consider this part of a dialogue, not a set of instructions. And again, get the book for additional details. Keep the fleet. Maximize, maximize, maximize. Make a roadmap. Be honest. Share the wealth. Which brings us on to the big opportunity. There we go. Sorry, wrong piece of paper. Upset now. 25 years of wind. And the lessons learned. And the ongoing decarbonization challenge means that Scotland is in a unique position to achieve net zero by its current deadline of 2045. Fantastic. And it has the chance to share the knowledge of that journey, of how it achieves the sort of systematic change necessary to address the climate emergency on a national scale, which sort of brings us back to where we came in. Scottish wind power can save the world. But, and of course there's a but. But this is where the big ask comes in. It's not going to happen automatically. It should not be left to governments and big business to decide and sort. And just setting that net zero target isn't going to be enough. It doesn't mean some good things aren't happening already, because they are, and it doesn't discount ongoing plans to address the challenges ahead. That said, and again, these are observations based on 15 years covering renewable energy. It is essential that we as a society, one, heed the history. And if you want to translate that as buy my book, by all means, go for it. Two, act with net zero in mind across generation, networks, heat, transport, everything. Remember, there is no alternative when it comes to the climate emergency. We all have to do this, and it all needs doing. And share your experiences and concerns. Talk to your friends, talk to your family, talk to your community, talk to your elected officials. If we don't talk about this as a society, it's not going to happen. Or even worse, if we don't talk about it as a society, it's not going to happen as we would wish it to happen. So it's important to communicate. And this is an important and. It is perfectly acceptable to dislike wind power. But it is not okay for that negative position to be your only response to the climate emergency. If you don't like Plan A and you want to be a credible critic of Plan A, you need to base that position on the facts and have a realistic Plan B. And other than outright climate change denial, I have not yet seen an alternative plan that manages success without wind and other large-scale renewable technologies. It may be out there, but I haven't seen it, and I've been looking pretty closely for 15 years. So if you don't like Plan A and you want to be a credible critic, come up with a realistic Plan B. Right. I'm going to read another extract now with all of these things in mind from Revolution, which comes out in a couple of weeks. Driving north from Inverness on the main road towards Dingwall, it is impossible to miss the turbine spinning on a steep-sided hummock of a small hill above the farmland along the Cromarty Firth. This is not a utility-scale generator in an upland plateau, but a piece of relatively human-scale technology designed to offset consumption somewhere in the immediate locality of the valley floor, probably an agricultural holding. The turbine stands starkly but elegantly white against what is a verdant background, and I cannot recall a time, and I drive by fairly often, when it was not spinning happily on its horizontal axis. The machine is integrated into its surroundings, and even those who campaign against wind would be forced to acknowledge that it seems part of its landscape, rather than standing out against it. You might as well be offended by a cow or a barn. On the horizon, higher into the hills, is a smear of wind turbines that are, by dint of distance, tiny by comparison. These are commercial scale machines that stretch hundreds of feet into the air and produce enough power to make an impact on the national stage, not just on the scattered host communities, farms, and estates of Easter Ross and Sutherland. From a distance, and from low altitudes, it can be difficult to find the small, gently rotating forms, even if you know they're there. Scotland, as a country, traveled from scattered examples of the farm-scale turbine to thousands of megawatts of the utility vision of a wind farm in less than 25 years. It went from a nationwide grid-connected fleet capable of meeting 0% of electricity demand in 1995 to one that, on a good day, can now supply the equivalent of 100% of power consumed north and south, east and west, islands and all. As one wind veteran said to me, that is some statement, the biggest you can get in less than 30 years. That is powerful. Wind power by itself is not, of course, the savior, but nor is it the Antichrist. It is, like all things made by man, a tool. How and whether we use any tool says more about ourselves, our judgments, our ambitions, our fears, even our morality, than about the implement itself. The turbine on the hill produces electricity by harnessing the power of the wind. From that point on, it is pretty much up to us to decide what happens next.